Does being poor mean you automatically go to heaven? It might seem that way when you read some verses in the Bible, including the verse we're going to look at today in James chapter 2. This is Looking Intently. I put out short videos on the Bible. I'm going through the book of James right now, and to make sure you don't miss any new ones, click the subscribe button and then that bell icon when it appears in the lower right there. What do you think? Who has an easier time accepting God and His grace? Someone who's poor, someone who's comfortable, I guess we'd say, or someone who's rich? I put together another poll. Click on that link and then click the answer that you think is best up there. Verse 5, James writes, "Listen, my beloved brothers, has not God chosen those who are poor in the world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom, which He has promised to those who love Him?" So he's saying God's chosen those who are poor in the world to go to heaven, be heirs of the kingdom. What's he mean by that? Well, you always have to ask, to answer questions like that, you always look to the context. And in this case, he's talked about the poor and the rich before, back in chapter 1, where he said, "Let the lowly brother boast in his exaltation and the rich in his humiliation." And you can check out that video. I'll put a link up here. But we saw basically, the poor brother, that means they're a Christian, be a brother or a sister. And so their exaltation is, I'm going to heaven. I have a relationship with God right now, despite the fact that I got nothing in this world. And the rich person's humiliation is the fact that for all they have in this world, it doesn't contribute anything to their salvation. And so that's what he's setting that up, and he's already making the distinction. It's not just automatically if you're poor. Well, also, you have to look at other things that, James might be referencing. And in the book of James, a lot of times, he's referencing something from the Sermon on the Mount. And this is definitely an example. You look at Matthew chapter 5, verse 3. Jesus said there, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Luke said even more, to raise this question, what about the poor and how they get into heaven? He just says the poor. Blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. They get to go to heaven. Well, what's that mean? If you're poor, you automatically go to heaven? No. You understand any passage, you look for the clear passage and you interpret the less clear passage in light of it. Well, the Bible clearly says in other places, we are saved by grace through faith. It's not any works. It's not anything. I had it rough in this life. I get a, get into heaven free card. So what is it about the poor? Why are they often associated, though, with the kingdom? And the rich sort of being the opposite. Well, you think about it, especially as poor in spirit. It brings out this idea, they're not just poor in the world, but they're poor in the sense of they realize that spiritually they need something from God, just like they realize and have an easier time understanding, I need God's help in every way. I don't know how I'm going to eat tomorrow. God, I need you. Well, that makes it easier for them than to realize, God, spiritually speaking, I need you. And the opposite's also true for the rich. They've got no problem, no worries about how I'm going to eat tomorrow, my shelter, anything like that. And so it makes it hard sometimes to say, God, I need you in this area. It goes back to the basic foundational trait that comes up all the time, humility. A poor person knows God is God and I'm not. A rich person, in some ways, they never say I'm God, but boy, I've provided for myself so often. It's hard maybe for them to have the humility spiritually and accept God and His grace. Well, how much do you feel your need for God? As we think about this, how much? And we all want to say, I need God, but how much do you feel it? And even then, the test is, what do I do? How do I live? What does my life show about how much I need God? And it's the key to becoming a Christian. I'm not going to accept Him to start with if I don't realize I need Him. I need His forgiveness. I need His transformation. And don't forget, it's the key to that as well. To being transformed, to growing. It's not just a matter of I read it in the Bible, decide to do it, and try real hard. Over and over, I'm seeing just how much the Bible says, all right, you do see it in the Bible, you realize you need it, and then you pray to God to give you the strength to live it out through His Spirit, to make that change, to be transformed into the image of Christ. What can you do to make yourself more aware of your need for God? To be poor in spirit. God, I need you spiritually in my life. One thing I would say as you read the Bible, look for this idea of humility. It won't always be that word, but it'll be the idea. God's God and I'm not. I need Him for this Christian life. And I tell you, you'll see that and so much else when you read the good book like a good book.